Today we begin, or tomorrow we're going to read the beginning of the book of Shemos, the beginning of the story of really the Jews of Egypt, even though they already came down to Egypt in the end of Parshas Vayigash and through Parshas Vayechi, where they were living there for quite a while, at least 17 years that we know during the lifetime of Yaakov. And then the very end of last week's Parsha, it tells us that Yosef died, so it's sort of like fast forwarded another 70 years or so. He died at the age of 110, and he was 39 when they came down. So we see that they were in Egypt for quite a while, but the real story really begins right now in the beginning of this parsha. This is the beginning of the story of the exile. This is the first exile of the Jewish people being exiled in Egypt. And when we list exiles, we list Egypt as the first one, and of course the slavery that we are so familiar with in the story, etc. So it all begins right here. And the beginning of the parsha begins with the words Ve'ele Shemos B'nai Yisrael. These are the names of the children of Yisrael. Yisrael here referring to Yaakov, right? That was his other name that he was given. And these are the names. Haboim Mitzrayma. The word Haboim Mitzrayma is an interesting one. It means who are coming to Egypt. It doesn't say who came to Egypt. It says who are coming. And then Yaakov and his family, and then it lists Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, etc. But the word Habaim sounds like, oh, they're just arriving now. But they've been here for all these years. We just said, because right in this, the next thing that's going to happen is going to tell us is that after Yosef died and that whole generation died out, that's when the Egyptians started to enslave the Jewish people. So why is it worded in a manner of Habaim as if they're coming now when they've been here for 90 years or so? So there are a few different answers that are given. Some of the classic answers from, for example, the Das Ekenim, one of the classic commentaries on the Torah. He says that before Yosef died, the Egyptians they didn't put taxes on the Jews. They basically were very lenient with them, and because they recognized all that Yosef had done, and this was his family. And now that he died, so now all of a sudden they started to put all kinds of different taxes on them. And therefore it was a whole new ball game, so to speak. And that's like a new beginning, a new coming. And that's the idea, he says. And he's quoting a Medrash, and the Kli Yakar also says a similar idea that things changed after Yosef died, and therefore it was kind of like they were new in the land. It's nice ideas. I saw Rabbi Sholem Rosner in his book Sholem Rav quotes an interesting explanation by a commentary whose book is called Yagdil Torah, more contemporary. His name is Rabbi Moshe Menachem Lodmir, and he explains the idea here of Habaim, that the idea that they're coming this is a concept that Yaakov was implanting in his children, how they should think and feel while they're in Egypt. Because remember, originally the idea was they came to sojourn in Egypt. Lagur ba'aretz banu, it tells us. They came to sojourn. They weren't supposed to be there and it certainly was not going to be their eventual home. They were returning to the land of Canaan. That was always in the cards. Hashem promised that the land would be the land for the Jewish people, right? Hashem had promised that. So of course they were not going to be staying in Egypt forever. And Yaakov wanted them to understand that, and he wanted them to have a mentality that was, this is temporary. This is not our homeland. And therefore, we're not going to get too comfortable. We're not going to become like regular natives of the land. And we're always going to have in our minds that this is not our final place, that really our home is in the land of Israel and Israel. And that this idea was not just a message for them now, but this was a message for the future. Yaakov knew that from prophecy there were going to be other exiles. And this is the attitude that the Jewish people are supposed to have in all of the exiles, including right now where we're in now, that we should be understanding that wherever we are outside of the land of Israel, that's not our permanent home. And we are always looking forward to becoming in that. And he said this really is because the natural thing is that after many years, right, you stay in a place, you becomes part of you. And we see, and certainly, we're living in North America. I grew up in the States where generations. You see different ethnic groups who came over in, whether it be 20 years ago, but 100 years ago, right, 150 years ago, and all the history. And they assimilated into the country, and now they speak the language just like everybody else, and they've become acclimated. And we don't, even if you do talk about their heritage, whatever it is, it's kind of like that's not who they are. That they are, well, whether it be American, Canadian, after a certain point in time. And but the Jewish people, we are not supposed to really feel that way. We're supposed to always feel a little bit like, this isn't our final place. And actually, Rav Soloveitchik points out that not just from our feeling, but the reality is that the Egyptians felt that way too. And that's why they never were comfortable, and that's why they decided to enslave the Jewish people. And unfortunately, we've seen that historically as well, that the other nations have a tendency to remind us that, oh no, you're not really one of us. You may have lived here for a few hundred years, but you're not really from this country. You're still a Jew, right? And they unfortunately remind us of that from time to time. The Rabbi Rosner brings down a story. I'm not sure if he quoted it from the Yagdil Torah or not, but the story is told that there was a certain chassid, this is back in Europe, who went to his Rebbe. It was the Belzer Rebbe, and he went to say to him he was having financial problems. He wasn't doing well financially, and he wanted some advice as to what he could do. And the Rebbe told him, listen, go to a certain city or town, which is far away. Go over there and you'll be successful. You'll make money. So he's okay. He said, but he says, when you're there, I want you to write to me. Send me letters telling me how you're doing. So he goes, and like almost right away he's successful. Like whatever he made the right deal. He went into the right business, and he was successful from the start. And he sends a letter to the Rebbe, and he tells him, thank God, I'm doing very well. The business took off, and it's great. But he says, it's I'm not so happy because the ruchnius, the spirituality here isn't so great. It's not like when I was by the Rebbe. Here it's there's a lot of people who are just not following the Torah, etc. I'm not so comfortable with that. The Rebbe sends back a letter. He says, okay, stick it out. You're doing all right. You'll be okay. And again, a little while later, a number of months later, he sends him another letter. Same idea, things are going well, but I'm not so comfortable, da da da. And the Rebbe says, okay, just hang in there. A little while later, he sends him a third letter. And he says, Baruch Hashem, I'm much more comfortable now. I'm feeling okay. Business is well, and I've gotten used to my surroundings. It's all okay. I'm much more comfortable now. The Rebbe sends him back a letter, says, time to come home. Now it's time to come home. Says the idea is that as long as you felt like you weren't comfortable with everything else that was going on, then you can deal with it. You can handle it. You know what's right and what's wrong, and you know that you have to conduct yourself in a certain way and stay away from certain things. Once you feel comfortable with it, then you're going to get sucked into it, and that's the time you have to go back and in a sense come back home to recharge. And he said that's really how we outside of the land of Israel, that's how we as Jews feel, that this is a temporary place. We're here for whatever reasons we're here, and we need to be here, etc. But our home is in the land of Israel, and that's where we can fully live as Jews as the way Hashem wants us to. And as long as we have that mindset, so okay, we can stay here. But if we lose that mindset, then it's definitely time